Welcome, folks. I'm Jaby Koay, joined by ACHARA KIRK.
What's up?
We're looking at Loki Episode 6 breakdown, Easter eggs, and details you missed from new Rockstars. New Rockstars, thank you so much for allowing us to react to this. Very much appreciated. Y'all, if you could vote this video up, that would mean a lot. And also subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon, all notifications. And here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of Loki Episode 6, the season finale for all time, always, which deprives us of Jet Ski Mobius, but makes up for it with Jonathan Majors' wickedly talented performance as he who remains a variant of Kang the Conqueror. Look, there's so much deeper meaning hidden in all the details of this episode, so let's break down this finale frame by frame to celebrate me getting a theory right for a change.
All right.
You can get our Loki-inspired merch at newrockstarsmerch.com, like our Loki Out of Time shirt and our Loki Gator Polo and a Mobius on a jet ski shirt.
I'm gonna get
the
one of
window
those.
is closing fast,
Sure.
so you gotta jump on this. newrockstarsmerch.com. Okay, over the Marvel Studios title, we actually hear the music of It's Been a Long, Long Time by Harry James and Helen Forrest, which first played in Captain America the Winter Soldier, and then more memorably in the final scene of Avengers Endgame. That was the moment Steve Rogers created one of the many variant branches that could have destabilized He Who Remains' sacred timeline. Then we hear other iconic sounds from MCU past, which at first play over the character as they appear in the Marvel title animation, but then build into a cacophony as the timeline orbits around his citadel in a flat circle, time unfolding all at once from his perspective. But because I'm insane, I've broken down pretty much everything hidden in here. Iron Man's repulsor.
Yeah.
Falcon
a little bit longer.
congratulating Ant-Man during Civil War.
Way to go, Tic Tac! Way to go, Tic Tac!
Hope Van Dyne's lying to Scott Lang and Ant-Man.
That's how you punch.
Hulk roaring. T'Challa's salute in Black Panther.
Wakanda forever!
Yeah.
Wakanda forever!
Spider-Man's web shooter.
Forever!
Scott's
Oh, wow.
first meeting with Falcon and Ant-Man.
You wouldn't have heard of me. No, you wouldn't have heard of me.
Natasha talking to Coulson in Avengers.
Let me put you on hold.
Peter Quill in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Dance off, bro! Dance off, bro! Me and you.
Thor in Ragnarok.
He's a friend from work! He's a friend from work!
Cap versus Cap in Endgame.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Mjolnir, I think reverting to Cap in Endgame.
I didn't quite catch that
Him
one.
and Ant-Man.
I'll show you ferocity, and I'll show you ferocity.
Carol Danvers and Captain Marvel.
Higher, further, faster, baby.
Yeah,
Higher, further, faster,
I
baby.
recognize that for sure.
Loki to Thanos in Infinity War.
We have a Hulk. We have a Hulk.
Korg to Loki in Ragnarok.
We're gonna jump on that spaceship and get out of here. You wanna come? We're about to jump on that ginormous spaceship. You wanna come?
Bucky in Winter Soldier.
Out of here. You wanna come?
Who the hell is Bucky?
Peter Quill planning in Guardians of the Galaxy.
I have part of a plan.
This is
Natasha to
insane.
Loki in Avengers.
I got red in my ledger.
Yes.
I'd like to wipe it out.
Doctor Strange to Dormammu.
I'd like to wipe it out.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
Vision to Ultron.
I was born yesterday.
Hulk to Loki in Avengers.
Puny God. Puny God.
Thor to that shield big guy in Thor.
Bigger. You're big. Fought bigger.
Fury's speech in Avengers.
There was an idea. Stark knows this.
Hawkeye's speech to Wanda in Ultron.
An idea.
You are an Avenger.
Loki's final words in Infinity War.
How did he hear all this? I'm having a hard time making it out.
Banner's big line in Avengers.
I'm always. That's my secret, Cap.
Yeah.
I'm always angry.
Hank Pym and Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Time is the true enemy.
You sent my suit through the mail.
And it sounds like the voice of Carly Morgenthau in there from Falcon Winter Soldier. And Caecilius to Doctor Strange.
Time is the true enemy of us all. Time is the true enemy of us all. Time kills everything.
And then it ends with a subtle baby cry.
Of us all.
Now this one is actually hard to find, but it is the sound of baby Loki crying in that flashback in Thor of Odin taking him in when he was a frost giant.
How did you find this? How did you find this? How did you you find that? How the hell did you find that? My understanding is New Rockstars is a team of like 5 or 6 people. How the hell did you scour like all the movies to find that specific sound? Jesus Christ Almighty! How are you finding that specific? Like, half of the things he was pointing out, I'm like, I can't even make it out. How is he able to do this?
I don't know. They must just be listening to it slow, fast, like just over and over. Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, baby Loki.
Now you'll notice there's a bit of a Loki bias among these, since this history is being filtered through the perspective of a witness observing Loki's entire life start to finish in particular. Then we pull out from our solar system, now hearing a lecture from philosopher Alan Watts about time.
We think of time as a one-way.
Watts argued that time isn't really the past causing the events of the future, but in truth, just an imaginary concept that we perceive from where we are in the present, similar to the non-linear way He Who Remains perceives time. And then we zoom out from the galaxy and we hear—
Alan Watts actually has a lot of interesting videos on YouTube if you guys want to check it out. I think I saw one that was super cool that was like done with like animation and stuff like that to really solidify the ideas he was talking about.
Yeah, he's really, really thought-provoking.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Neil Armstrong's first words on the moon. Meanwhile, a mysterious ship soars past us. Now, this doesn't look like any of the Guardians of the Galaxy ships, nor one that NASA would use, or one that I think Sword would use, especially this far out in the solar system, but I'm thinking it could be one piloted by Kang enemies, the Fantastic Four. Then we hear the voice of climate activist Greta Thunberg. As all of the galaxies, our known universe appears to be contained within this blue sphere, which then condenses and then explodes. Maybe a depiction of a Big Bang or a future Big Bang, an event that would have created the Infinity Stones. Then we hear the voice of activist Malala Yousafzai. And then the voice of Nelson Mandela.
Wow, I didn't catch any of that.
As Tchaikovsky's music from Swan Lake plays, representing a battle between light and dark, like the apathetic yet still benevolent variant of Kang versus the darker, more menacing variants who end up conquering in the end. And we realize that
I did catch classical music in there, I just didn't know which one it was.
Everything we have just seen has been set inside of one black hole that neighbors another as the music shifts like a radio dial to Beethoven's Fur Elise.
To experience peace.
Which he wrote as an ode to his lover, perhaps reflecting the way Kang's actions may have been Fur Ravana. Everything we're seeing here is really an astronomical geography of the spatial relationship between these universes, which He Who Remains later describes as stacked on top of each other. And then we dive into that second black hole, a separate reality now, as we hear the voice of classic Loki from last episode. And then we briefly see one planet colliding into another. Perhaps this was Lamentus 1. And then we stretch into a—
No, because Earth, okay, early stages of Earth and Moon and all that stuff.
Frosty 2001 Space Odyssey Stargate, as we hear first Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's 2006 speech.
Jesse. Motivated by women throughout the world.
And then Vision's big line from WandaVision.
What is grief if not love persevering? What is grief if not love persevering?
And then poet Maya Angelou. That was from a poem with verses about her history being rewritten, which does happen to Sylvie and Loki at the end of this episode when no one remembers them. And the final things we hear during this montage are Sylvie's voice from last episode.
Open your eyes! Open your eyes!
And then some Morse code beeping. This could be the 1962 Morse message that was beamed out to space. And we see the Citadel at the end of time.
Why didn't he say what it said though?
Yeah.
Well, he should have said what the Morse code, like you're breaking everything else down. You don't say what the Morse code says.
About? Yeah.
His cracked design, which is also reflected in He Who Remains time twister on his wrist and his tableau goo, looks a lot like kintsugi pottery, representing how He Who Remains likely had to piece it together from broken shards of that past multiversal war to create this kind of neutral ground, and foreshadowing the way that this timeline will splinter and crack once more in the episode's end. Flanking this entrance are 2 giant hourglasses, and staying true to the series Wizard of Oz parallels, their slow walk down the hall does mirror the nervous walk to meet the wizard.
Wow.
Just reveal that man behind the curtain is a far
That looks so
comedic
goddamn
figure than we
alike.
expected.
Well, like
Before we
it
even get
really
there-
did remind me of that moment in The Wizard of Oz, just the whole thing and just how kooky he was. Like I almost feel like maybe that was a reference for the character. You know,
it was
just
by
be like,
design. Absolutely. Yeah.
Play it like you're the Wizard of Oz. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool, I'll do that.
This minute scares the shit out of us in this chamber with looming hooded figures with clocks for faces. Kind
they're
of like
clocks?
a creepier
Oh,
form
I
of
didn't even catch that.
Yeah. I didn't notice.
what Miss Minutes essentially is, a clock-faced greeter. And note how later she's late to meet Renslayer, therefore she cannot be in two places at once. And she offers them this deal.
He's worked it out so we can reinsert both of y'all back into the timeline in a way that won't disrupt things.
Similar to the offer made in The Matrix to the humans. Really,
I've been calling this parallel out like so much.
Yeah.
The architect scene.
episode is kind of playing out like the architect scene in Matrix
There you
Reloaded,
go,
but
don't
a
you
lot
feel?
more fun to watch.
I feel so validated.
Right?
So validated.
Minutes offers Loki his chance to rule.
You can kill Thanos.
Okay, he's like considering it as well.
Yeah, Natalie Holt's violin theme returns, the music that played over Loki watching his own life back in episode 1, but not to his own death, but to the deaths of Frigga and Odin.
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
That is who he is really thinking about in this moment. A chance to see them in Thor again. Now,
Oh, wow. I'm so glad he broke that down. I would have never thought about that. I would have never put that together had he not said that. That's why you need these kinds of videos.
Trailer footage showed some shots of King Loki on the Asgardian throne and back at the top of Stark Tower. Presumably these were going to be shown here as Loki imagined these possibilities. Now back at the TVA, Renslayer notices Mobius ring stains on the table.
Why?
Something that he did not remember leaving, which could connect to his total memory reset at the end of this episode, making me wonder if the TVA could have been reset before all this many times, similar to how in the Matrix that was actually the 6th incarnation of the Matrix.
That would actually make a lot more sense of things now, and that's why the He Who Remains had a script of everything up to a certain point. That's, I mean, I don't know. I'm just theorizing here.
Right.
It's all conjecture, obviously. Maybe he'll break it down even better.
Yeah, because we were going
But-
back and forth in our live stream.
Right.
Because everyone's all like, no, it's not what you think it is.
Yeah, okay, that makes so much more sense of things now.
Okay,
And
okay.
like that's why his script ended when it did, because like he had gone to that point before and it just stopped. I don't know why it stopped at that point in time, but yes.
Ravonna gets a mystery file.
He thinks this'll be more useful.
Who?
Yeah, notice how here Renslayer does not seem to know who He Who Remains is, but in the later scene, she suddenly seems more agitated, and she gripes that he's the only one with free will. So what did she learn from this file? Well, later, Mobius reveals that Renslayer actually came from FDR High School in Fremont, Ohio in 2018, where she was apparently the principal based on her having an office, and that Ohio State diploma, listing her name as Rebecca Tormenay, an alias that Renslayer actually uses in the comics when she goes to the year 1903. So I love it. She goes from a name sounding like Terminate to one sounding like Slayer. Now on her desk you'll see more pens like the one that we saw. And around this school are posters of FDR, but also Eleanor Roosevelt in her office, and then a bunch more posters of coat drives, and this being homecoming week. And that is interesting because homecoming is of course
Right.
in the autumn. But autumn 2018 in the MCU would have been a few months after the snap, which occurred in the spring of that year. So perhaps this coat drive is for displaced kids and families during the blip. And the reason she joined the TVA could have been blip related. Because Ravonna Renslayer is of course Kang's love interest in the comics. So maybe here in the show he has something over her. Like she could have been destined to have been dusted, and that could have left behind a child who died without her. So to keep her sacred timeline self undusted and that kid safe, she continues to work for Kang as his objectified doll.
I have to believe they had a reason.
But here, upon learning this truth, she leaves through this time door.
Where are you gonna go?
In search of free will.
Which could be her searching for a reality with a different Kang variant who might give her a better deal, which could lead to the Kang the Conqueror, who overtakes the TVA in the final scene. By the way, most of us have a goal that we want to accomplish, but for some reason we haven't yet, right? Maybe it seems overwhelming or you're just not excited enough to start. Well, the Hero's Journal helps by turning your goal into a quest, and thanks to Hero's Journal for sponsoring this episode.
Sounds so
Based
much
on
like
the
Hero's
best of
Journey,
goals
doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm so glad that videos like this exist to break it down, because I would have been completely confused and lost until they like explain it in a later episode or film or something like that.
But I just want to say as well, like, you know, they're making guesses too, right? They're just like very
extremely educated
guesses. Like
Yeah.
with this one about Ravonna Renslayer, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting take on maybe what's happening, and some of it, I'm like, yeah, you know, like the whole ring situation. I'm like, yeah, that reset thing is kind of making sense to me now. But this whole situation that he's talking about with Kang and that, and a child and whatnot, I'm like, I don't know. But then I don't know the comics, so.
You're right, exactly.
You know.
I mean, he's drawing from the source material to make these theories, which, like I said, it's extremely educated guesses.
Yeah.
description and use our promo code NEWROCKSTARS for your 10% off. But back in the Citadel, Loki and Sylvie reach a chamber with these ceiling cogs and pendulums, bells, but then on the floor, a depiction of the lunar cycle. All of these are various ways of keeping time, but also timekeeper statues.
Yes.
3 still standing, but a 4th one shattered.
Broken.
In the comics, there was a 4th timekeeper named the Oracle of Siwa, who was exiled to ancient Egypt for informing the Fantastic Four of events to come. Perhaps this statue was shattered during the past multiversal war between Kangs, and He Who Remains couldn't put it back together. Or this could be some evidence of a past attempted uprising in one of the past TVA resets, where one of the timekeepers betrayed He Who Remains to help a variant get to him, and then He Who Remains responded by expelling that one faulty timekeeper and destroying his statue that represented him. But then the man behind the curtain we've been talking about is revealed.
He Who Remains. She's still calling me that? Creepy. Right. I like it.
Yes, He Who Remains is actually the name of the elderly TVA caretaker at the Citadel at the end of time who builds the timekeepers in the comics. And although he's never explicitly named Kang in this episode, He Who Remains is 100% confirmed to be a variant of Kang the Conqueror. Jonathan Majors was cast as Kang for Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania. He is dressed like Immortus, who is another form of Kang from the comics. He said that his variant was from the 31st century, when Kang Nathaniel Richards was born. He calls himself a conqueror. And yeah, this pays off all the clues the show has given us, from Renslayer to Alioth to the Tower for Kang Enterprises, the shell company, Renslayer's ID of A23, which was their appearance together in the comics, Avengers 23. And notice how here the light casts his face in blue, like his comic book look. Now I notice he eats an apple, which could mean a lot of things. First, it's a symbol of Newtonian knowledge,
right?
You know, boink. And later on, in his office is this chalkboard with equations that use integrals. And if I remember from Calculus AB in high school, this is calculus. And Sir Isaac Newton is credited as a co-creator of calculus. But the apple also recalls Doctor Strange's use of an apple to first demonstrate time manipulation in the MCU. But it also reminds us of that episode 2 word problem from Miss Minutes that asked about the last MCU big bad, Thanos, using him eating apples as an example.
Thanos has 2 apples. He eats both, but realizes he wants more. He goes back in time 20 minutes and eats the apples again. But does this mean the apples will not have existed in the timeline he left?
That hurts my head.
The question doesn't matter because a breach cannot change another time branch.
Of course, apples are also associated with the forbidden fruit of the Garden of Eden in the book of Genesis, used to tempt Adam and Eve by the serpent. And in this episode, He Who Remains offers these Adam and Eve figures chances to be gods and refers to himself a few times this episode as the devil. Now, to pull off this effect of He Who Remains dodging Sylvie's blows, Hiddleston and DiMartino must have had to shoot their action on a green screen and then had to be layered into that elevator with Majors. But this render was left just rough enough around the edges that leaves the characters and us feeling emotionally detached from this seemingly untouchable immortal. He Who Remains reveals this is all scripted, and we see if you look closely at his book that Sylvie is ID'd as variant L1190. And notice how he lifts that book. I like how he does a subtle little adjustment of his time twister to draw attention to it, since this is the key to controlling the room. And I think he ultimately wants Sylvie to take it and kill him so that he can respawn in a more dangerous form. Like, I think the Council of Kangs know that Loki and Sylvie's union make them true Nexus beings that threaten their empire. And so He Who Remains really feigns this candidness with this phony offer to replace him, while really he is driving a wedge between them the whole time.
It's all, a manipulation.
So she was right, and Loki was wrong, according to this theory, because he everything he was doing was designed to create more chaos, so to speak.
Right, but what if they had not split apart, and what if they had actually seriously considered his offer and come together, or if they had come together and killed him together? The point was to split them apart. Now Loki is lost in time, space, whatever, and she's separated from him.
Well, he's back at the TVA,
right,
which got reset.
Which, okay, maybe that what he's saying, you know, that they can't be together, right? Because if they are, then they're too powerful as Nexus beings.
Yeah.
So yeah, if that was his plan all along, then that was pretty smart.
But neither of them caught it.
Nope.
Yeah. And neither did I. Huh? Neither did we.
Interesting that your head would go to that.
Sylvie!
You think you can trust this guy?
He Who Remains later says,
without the TVA, everything burns.
Jonathan Majors is having a blast, hamming up the eccentricities in this jaded, sing-songy tone. He's constantly moving to new physicalities just to punctuate and liven this monologue. Kind of like a guy on the last day of his job. Super dangerous, super fun to watch. You could actually compare him to Heath Ledger's Joker, who also says similar words.
Everything burns.
And when he's seated at his desk, he's framed with his head in the middle of his spiral window in the background. Kind of like the whole universe orbiting around his egomaniacal personality.
Wow.
And he explains a variant of himself in the 31st century discovered.
That was a cool spot. I didn't even think about that. I didn't clock it. That's a cool spot.
Aesthetically very nice.
Yeah.
Parallel universes the same time as other variants.
For a while, there was peace. Narcissistic, self-congratulatory peace. I love your shoes, I love your hair. Oh man, nice nose, thanks man.
Yeah, Majors might be joking about his own recognizable nose, but really he knows he is sexy. We see how the Kang variants invented time doors, reset charges, the computer's printing sticks the TVA use, but they ended up in this multiversal war, meaning that Miss Minutes animation was actually telling the truth about that, just that it wasn't the Timekeepers who ended it, but He Who Remains apparently repelling these even worse evil Kangs. The figurines shapeshift into prayerful and grateful poses. He says,
I've lived a million lifetimes. I've gone through every scenario. This is the only way.
Similar to how Doctor Strange said that he saw 14,605 future outcomes, but that only one was a successful way forward.
Right.
There was no other way.
Now, of course, He Who Remains' offer is very much like a Willy Wonka style offer to them to take over his job. But I love how Majors nods at that with his pose here.
Or you're a liar.
Or I'm a liar.
Yeah, laying it on his fist, just like the Willy Wonka meme. And as he says he is older than he looks and that this game is for the young and hungry, the camera pulls back from him, making him look smaller and smaller, more diminished in the window spiral, as if his influence is appearing to fade. And then he snaps at Sylvie.
Grow up! Grow up, Sylvie! Murderer! Hypocrite!
Similar to how Caecilius called out the Ancient One.
Hypocrite!
Because among sorcerers, no one really has the moral high ground. But then everything shifts in this scene.
But now, you have a chance to do them for a good reason. We just crossed the threshold.
Yeah, that thunder was the sound of the sacred timeline breaking up. And fitting to use thunder for that, because as it branches, it does look a lot like heat lightning, evoking the moment the Ancient One slowed down time in the moment of her death. A similar moment where she, just like He Who Remains here, could not foresee beyond that point. So what caused this? Ravona's pact with another Kang? Or could He Who Remains justifying free will subversion have been the thing that Sylvie decided she was just gonna kill him no matter what Loki told her? Either way, that—
Maybe it was both. Maybe it was both.
Yeah.
I mean, but her making a pact with another Kang might make a lot of sense. In terms of like, now you see the Kang statue there and whatnot.
Yeah, okay.
Break makes it so that when Loki returns to the TVA, it has already warped and reset so that a different Kang is now ruling over this one. He Who Remains removes his time twister and slides it over, but notice how his gesture, again sliding his hand across the table, and the framing makes it look like it is still on his hand, which could be a clue that this offer is really a bait and switch because both alternatives lead to his victory. Loki and Sylvie duel, and upon their early clash, He Who Remains jumps in his seat in the corner in excitement, which is similar to how Palpatine loved watching Luke and Vader fight. And before that, Anakin and Dooku fight. Because either way, the mastermind has already won. It's so tragic to see these two fight, largely in the way it parallels what Loki told Sylvie as an answer to what love is back in episode 3.
Love is a dagger. It's a weapon to be wielded far away or up close. You can see yourself in it. It's beautiful until it makes you bleed. But ultimately, when you reach for it,
it isn't real.
Yeah, Loki wields his love for Sylvie up close and can see himself in her, but she makes him bleed. And when he reaches for it, it isn't real. Instead, classic Loki's wisdom really reigns supreme.
The blades are worthless in the face of a Loki's sorcery.
But despite all this, Loki does make a key concession.
all I know is I don't want to hurt you. I don't want a throne. I just want you to be okay.
Signaling that he learned the core lesson that Sylvie laid out for him earlier this season.
This isn't about you.
I just gotta make a comment about Tom Hiddleston's acting in that scene was
So good.
So fantastic.
So good.
It was
so
amazing.
Good. Yeah.
Like even just watching it in the small playback here, I'm like, oh my God, it just hits you all over again.
But as he tumbles back through the time door into the TVA theater, the window lights on the floor go in opposing directions, which is odd because presumably they're coming from the same exterior light source. The way these lights paralleled Loki and Mobius's opposition in episode 4, they now mirror the opposition between Loki and Sylvie. But on a more literal level, it also shows how this new TVA that Loki has found himself in does not revolve according to the same gravity as the old one did. So Sylvie stabs He Who Remains and he winks and says,
"See you soon."
Yeah, back in episode 4, after Sylvie beheaded the Timekeeper android and the other two shut down, if you listen closely, you could hear a voice whisper, "See you soon." Yes, the voice of Kang.
Wow. Like,
what?
Is that real? I almost wonder if the subtitles. I wonder if the subtitles just made you hear it.
Yeah.
Like an illusion.
Yeah, because it almost just sounds like the wind.
Yeah.
See you.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know.
He Who Remains, who was calling his shot back then, and now his wink confirming it to her that she truly has had no free will in this battle. The sacred timeline splits into branches of branches of branches, and the chronomonitor screen confirms that many of these branches overlap with each other.
Oh, wow.
Looking back at the cosmic version of it, some regions grow a bright red, which could be the incursion that we saw in WandaVision's post-credit scene, and been the cause of Wanda suddenly hearing her children calling to her from another reality.
Oh, wow.
So yes, we are looking at the Multiverse of Madness.
It all comes together.
Yeah.
Sense making.
Maybe.
That Doctor Strange 2 will take place in, where the Scarlet Witch will be the rising threat he has to face. Perhaps even the logical basis for how Alfred Molina, Doc Ock, and Jamie Foxx Electro will appear in Spider-Man No Way Home. Hopefully we'll get the trailer for that very soon. Meanwhile, Loki finds the TVA change as he passes a bunch of hunters who don't really care about him. It's hard to tell, but one of these must be Hunter K5E, listed in the credits as Eugene Cordero, meaning Casey must have either got promoted or in this alternate TVA, instead of being a desk clerk, he gets to be a hunter. And then in the archives, he finds Mobius and B-15 who have no idea who he is, which is really odd because even before he was a detained variant, Loki was the freaking god of mischief with an infamous reputation, so this must have been a hard memory wipe reset. The Timekeeper statues have been replaced with He Who Remains variant. In this case, it is Kang the Conqueror, which we know because he's wearing his Conqueror wardrobe. This might remind you of that final twist in Tim Burton's 2001 Planet of the Apes with the Lincoln Memorial, but just by looking at this, while the TVA may change on a dime, its true creator is now, thanks to Sylvie, for all time, always. And the credits confirm that Loki will return for a second season, and with Kang's confirmed appearance in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania in February 2023, I'm thinking season 2 could come at the end of 2022, or maybe in the first weeks of 2023 to lead into that film.
I
Ant-Man
would
and the Wasp
love that.
left a quantum realm city in the background that I've been theorizing could be Kang's kingdom of Chronopolis. And Kang in Quantumania could live beyond that film to be the villain of a future Fantastic Four film or an Avengers Secret Wars conflict. But whenever we see Kang next with an actor as talented and versatile as Jonathan Majors, it would not surprise me if he brings a whole new characterization to his Conqueror variant. We still have much to learn about him, and that is what makes him so dangerous and so delightful. I want to thank you all so much for joining me on these breakdowns of Loki. This show is a true masterclass in world building and storytelling, and I hope the details and connections I've been able to find have enriched the viewing experience for you.
has.
Don't worry, I'll be back with plenty more Marvel theories and future breakdowns, so be sure to subscribe to New Rockstars.
Yeah, I mean, it has certainly enlightened me and opened my eyes to a lot of details I would have otherwise never caught. So thank you so much, New Rockstars, for being so thorough in your breakdowns and whatnot. Like, even just the opening alone of breaking down every audio clip, every soundbite, and tying it to what movie it came from. I'm like, that alone must have been an exorbitant amount of effort to even tracking down the baby cry. I'm like, what? How did you?
Yeah. That's crazy.
I was going back and forth with Citadel and ACHARA this morning and the audience on the live stream trying to figure out, like, I thought for sure that maybe there was multiple TVAs. That was my assumption.
That's what we both were like, no, there must be multiple ones. Because with him not being recognized, with Loki not being recognized, my immediate thought was, oh, well, it must be because he's in an alternate reality where he doesn't exist. But I guess he's making a very strong argument for the hard reset. So I'm open to this idea now.
Yeah, a hard reset by another Kang from another universe.
Yeah, and Jonathan Majors really was incredible in this as well. Like, it was such a great introduction for him into the MCU, and I totally agree with Eric Voss here, where he's like, his other iteration of Kang is going to be really different, because it has to be, you know, and like how fun is that for an actor to be able to kind of do different nuances of the character for each variation that he gets to play.
It gives you a fun challenge to do.
Yeah, so that they all feel different.
Yeah. He's saying that the season 2 will come at the end of 2022. That's a year and a half from now.
Yeah, it feels really far, not gonna lie. I'm slightly just like bummed that it's probably going to be that long, but also if the timing is as he says it is, and it's like we get the show leading into the movie, I'd be really stoked for that, just to kind of not have too much space in between watching the stuff in the show and then watching the movie. I'm like, no, I want it like back to back, because I want it to make sense. Like, I don't want to forget.
Yeah, Marvel's definitely in control of our attention. Go to the movies, go watch your TV, go to the movies, go watch your TV.
Watch the TV first, then go watch the movie.
Exactly.
Okay, you gotta watch all the things.
I thoroughly enjoy him like referencing the comics and showing you the exact costume and whatnot. One of the things that makes this breakdown so dope is like how fast he's bringing in all these different references and whatnot.
Yeah.
And every little thing he mentions, generally speaking, he shows you what he's talking about. And it takes so much time to like get those graphics, get those images, put it all together in a smooth way with all the transitions and whatnot. I mean, these are beautifully made videos.
Yeah.
You know, as two people who make videos every single day, like I recognize the level of effort that's going into this. And not only that, like he's doing this in a 24-hour turnaround.
Yeah.
It's like his show comes out at midnight, and then this is coming out the next day or the day after. This is a lot of work.
A lot of work.
I can imagine these guys are not sleeping much in making these Loki breakdowns.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing fantastic work.
It's phenomenal.
It's admirable. I was already crazy excited for what's to come in the next stages of this, you know, of the MCU and whatnot. But watching this stuff has me even more excited, getting a better, more well-rounded understanding, like in a nutshell.
Yeah.
You know, getting the Cliff Notes version of all of this material, just so I go, oh, okay, you know, it's more, you know, crystallized in my mind as to what exactly is going on and why. Because watching it, it's like you do get a good understanding as to what's what and who's who and like the story and all that. But then when you see these kinds of videos, you're like, oh, there's way more depth than you even could possibly fathom. Like, it's almost like the opening of episode 6 was made for new Rockstars. The way he was breaking it down.
Enjoy this, super fans.
Exactly.
Take that. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it's lovely. So, you guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Thank you, New Rockstars, for making this thorough video. And you guys subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe to New Rockstars. Give this video an upvote if you could be so kind. Check out our other reactions, reviews, short films, vlogs, and interviews. I'm Jaby Koay. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.